I used to believe I knew everything about my son. I thought I could read his moods, understand his silences, explain his distance. I chalked it up to adolescence, to stress, to something he'd eventually grow out of. I told myself it was just a phase. That time would fix whatever was broken. But I was wrong. I didn't know him at all. Not really, not his thoughts, not his fears, not his truth. And by the time I finally saw him, it was too late. Too late to ask the right questions. Too late to listen. Too late to love him out loud. We lived in a quiet house, the kind where you could hear the clock ticking in the hallway, where dinner was served on time, where rules came before feelings. I grew up believing in order, structure, discipline, faith. That's what I passed down. That's how I thought love worked. You prepare your children to survive, not to feel too much. So I raised my son the only way I knew how, strict but steady, firm but present. I didn't mean to be distant. I thought I was protecting him, giving him strength, shielding him from a world that wouldn't be kind. But over time, he changed. His laughter faded, his voice grew softer. He stopped meeting my eyes. He was still there, but somehow fading, like a ghost in his own home. And I did nothing. I watched from a distance, convinced I was doing the right thing. And now all I have left is that silence. And the question that keeps me awake every night: why didn't I see it? Then one day, the phone rang, and with it came the sentence that would break everything I thought was stable. "We're sorry. There was an accident." That was all they said, just those few words, no details, no explanation, and worst of all, no goodbye. No final hug, no last glance, no chance to say, "I love you," one more time. Just silence, a silence so heavy it felt like the world had collapsed in on itself. Everything I believed, everything I planned, everything I thought I'd fix with time, gone. The house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a museum of regrets. I walked into his room, still half expecting to hear music playing or see him lying on the bed with that blank stare he gave me when he didn't want to talk. But there was nothing, just stillness. Everything was exactly where he left it, the books on the shelf, his shoes by the door, a jacket hanging on the back of the chair like he might come back any minute. And then I saw it, on the desk, a single envelope, soft, creased at the edges, my name written across the front in his handwriting, not Dad, not Father, just my full name, like he wasn't sure what I'd want to be called anymore. My hands trembled as I reached for it. I didn't know it yet, but that envelope would change everything I thought I knew. About him, about myself, and about love. My fingers trembled as I opened the envelope. The paper inside was soft, worn, folded and unfolded more times than I could imagine. As if he'd written it, read it, then folded it away, again and again, too afraid to let it be seen. The handwriting was his. I would have known it anywhere. But the words weren't just ink. They were pieces of him I had never met. "Dear Dad, if you're reading this, I'm sorry, I didn't want it to be like this." That first line hit like a blow. He had written this knowing he might never say it to me face to face. My hands shook, my chest tightened, my heart, already broken, somehow broke more. There's something I couldn't say while I was alive. I was too afraid. "Dad, I'm gay." 3 words. So simple, so human. But in that moment, they echoed like thunder through the room. I stopped breathing. I read them again, not because I didn't understand, but because some part of me didn't want to believe it took death for him to speak his truth. I know you probably don't understand. I tried to change. I prayed every night, begged God to fix me. I wanted to be the son you deserved, the one you could be proud of. My throat burned. I thought I had taught him resilience, but what I really taught him was shame. I heard what you said about people like me, at church, at home. I heard it all, the jokes, the warnings, the disgust in your voice, so I stayed quiet, and that silence became heavier than I could carry. My own words, things I once said without thinking, words I thought were righteous, now felt like knives. Each syllable he remembered had cut him a little deeper. But even through the pain, I never stopped loving you. I just wish you could have loved me for who I really was. He didn't accuse. He didn't hate. Even in the end, he was still trying to protect me from guilt, from blame, from myself. He signed it simply, your son, always, Alex. And that was when I broke, completely. No pride, no pretense, no more defenses. Right there on the bedroom floor, with the letter clutched in my hands, I wept, not like a man, not like a father, but like a child who had just realized the most important thing in his life had slipped through his fingers. And there would be no second chance. How many times did he try to reach out, and I looked the other way? How many subtle cries for help did I mistake for attitude, for rebellion, for disobedience? I think back now to the little moments. The time he hesitated before saying something at dinner, then stayed quiet. The hug he reached for as a boy that I brushed off too soon. The nights he stayed in his room, headphones on, pretending he was fine. And all those times I said, I love you, but with conditions I never realized I'd set. I loved him when he made the team, when he brought home good grades, when he fit into the image I had built, the version of a son that made me feel proud. But what about when he was hurting, when he was scared, when he was just different? The truth is, I didn't fail him because he was gay. I failed him because I made him believe he couldn't be. I didn't scream at him. I didn't kick him out. But I made home feel like a place where he had to hide. And what's the difference, really? He didn't need sermons. He didn't need discipline. He didn't need me to fix anything. He needed a father. Someone who would wrap their arms around him and say, you are enough. You are loved. You are safe. But I never gave him that. I thought I was preparing him for a tough world. I thought I was protecting him. But I wasn't. I was protecting my pride, my ignorance, my fear. And in the process, I lost my son. I couldn't bring him back. No letter, no tears, no prayer could change that. But I could change what came next. I could make sure his voice wasn't the last of its kind, that his pain wouldn't be repeated in another child, in another home like ours. So I started listening, really listening, to stories that once made me uncomfortable, to truths I had spent a lifetime avoiding. I went where I never thought I would go. Support groups for parents like me. Rooms filled with people who had messed up too, but who were trying, who were learning, who refused to let silence win again. At first, I just listened, sat in the back, let the guilt wash over me like a storm I knew I deserved. But slowly I began to speak, not to defend myself, not to justify, but to tell his story, our story, and with every word I felt something shift. Something in me, something in the people listening. Because in those rooms, I saw other fathers, other mothers, look up with tears in their eyes. I saw kids gripping their parents' hands tighter. And I realized, it's not too late for them. Every time I speak, I'm not just telling the world who my son was. I'm giving someone else a chance to love their child before it's too late. And maybe that's how I honor him, not with flowers on a grave, but with the truth. With change. With love, the kind I should have given him when he was still here. This letter, it didn't just change how I see my son. It changed how I see the world, how I see love, how I see myself. It took losing him, to finally see him, to hear the words he was too afraid to speak aloud, to understand the quiet pain he carried every single day beneath that brave little smile. I can't rewrite our story. I can't go back and hold him tighter, listen longer, speak softer. But I can carry his truth forward. I can hang his letter where I once hung my expectations and remind myself every day that love without acceptance isn't really love at all. If you have a child, tell them you love them. Not who you hope they'll be, not who the world tells them to be, but who they are, right now, in this moment. Their truth isn't a phase. It's not a problem to fix. It's a gift to receive. Don't wait for silence to teach you what love should have said out loud. Don't wait for too late.